Chapter 1970 Pluto 4, 1/2. Karen's physique is like a perfect bodybuilder, and this image comes from the bodybuilding competitions that Pluto watched on TV in his early years. Weak and battered, he longed to have such a strong body so that he could protect himself. Therefore, the muscles on Karen's body are like sculptures carved by an artist, without any flaws. He put his hands together and raised them above his head. His muscles swelled up like a dragon, then twisted his body and struck a standard bodybuilder's muscular posture. The next moment, his eyes suddenly opened wide, and his body rushed forward like a whirlwind. Swish, swish, swish. Sharon transformed into a giant spinning top, clasped his hands together and pointed them forward, spinning, creating a violent storm, and rushed towards the sea of trees that blocked them in front. Among the various types of mutants, the enhancement type is the most common, and is also the weakest in general. Because his abilities are too pure, even though he has strong physical strength and vitality, his abilities are too easy to guess, so he always easily falls into a disadvantage in a duel. But it is undeniable that they are an indispensable type in battle. Whether they serve as a meat shield or as a main attacker to break through the defense, they are the key. Sharon, a bishop-level enhanced alien, transformed his body into a knight's lance and rushed towards the blockade line ahead. The storm was gathering, and the super-fast spiral speed brought up a hurricane and his body, which slammed heavily into the branches of the Blood Corpse Tree King. You could hear the sound of fibers breaking, crackling, and a large amount of wood chips flew around, being broken through by the storm. Sharon took the lead, and with one charge he opened a hole more than 10 feet long in the bushes. This guy. Seeing this, Nyx and others did not hesitate to follow closely behind him along the passage he had opened up. As a person with multiple personalities in one body, there is no need to explain the tacit understanding between them. Sharon was finally exhausted and stopped. Compared with the distance between them and the body of the Blood Corpse Tree King, this distance was actually insignificant. But with Sharon taking the lead, the other aliens were unwilling to fall behind. To be precise, it is another personality that is unwilling to fall behind. The 9-headed Hydra opened its 9 big mouths and spewed out 9 different kinds of powers, including wind, fire, lightning, venom, and supernatural cannons. The interweaving and collision of the powers triggered a chain reaction, instantly blasting open a long passage. Next, Kerberos, the 3-headed dog of hell, and Styx, the god of the Styx, also attacked one after another. The 5 bishop-level mutants, with their abilities complementing each other and working as one, with a common goal, are getting closer and closer to the Blood Corpse Tree King's body. The Blood Corpse Tree King said nothing, but just kept launching more violent attacks on them. Above the blood swamp, powerful corpses stood one after another, forming a blockade of tons of bones, trying to block their way. But all of this was reduced to nothingness under the waves of the Styx. Styx sneered, "All things in the underworld are under my jurisdiction. Even though you are in charge of tens of thousands of corpses, you still need to bow down before me." Even in a terrifying Jedi like Abyss number 51, Pluto managed to make it out safely, not to mention that he was only facing an unstable and remnant dream shadow. The 5 of them cooperated well with each other, broke through round after round of blockade, and finally successfully arrived in front of the huge Blood Corpse Tree King. It was truly an unimaginably huge mountain, towering into the clouds and connected to the sky, like a thick city wall blocking everyone's way. As they approached, a large number of blood-red vines emerged from around the tree trunk. They were thick and narrow, covered with barbs soaked in corpse poison, and they lashed at them fiercely through the air. Bang! The whip sounded loudly, and the huge vines lashed at Pluto's personality one by one. Sharon yelled, "Nyx, we are here to open the door for you. You made it fall into a dream." He really rushed forward and used his body to block the vines. Bang! A huge vine was whipped towards Karen's body. He reached out and used his huge palm to hold the thorny vine, which was many times thicker than his body. This time, blood oozed from his body and palms. The power of this vine is more terrifying than imagined. because it is not the root system of the blood corpse tree king, but grows out from the main trunk and has sufficient nutrients. Even the physique of a strong alien at the level of Bishop White could not withstand its force. What's more, there are tons of vines like this, and it is impossible to count how many there are. But Sharon still had a smile on his face. What does it matter if I'm injured? He is a teacher, a person who guides these confused personalities forward, and naturally, he also has the spirit of sacrifice and dedication. There may be many dark things in a person's heart, but he must have a bright and great belief to support him and keep going forward. Even in the shattered heart of John Heisenberg, there was light. Ah! Sharon roared and used his body to withstand many attacks from the thorny vines. The three-headed dog of hell and the Hydra, one on the left and one on the right, used their huge bodies to protect Nyx as he rushed forward. Countless economic vines whipped at them, wrapped around their bodies and necks, trying to tear them apart. But at this moment, they completely ignored their own pain and insisted on sending Nyx safely to the blood corpse tree king's body. Nyx's cold right hand stroked the trunk of the blood corpse tree king. Facing the tree that was as big as a mountain, her palms suddenly became soft. All living things have the ability to sense the outside world. If the target is a human, even a blind person, other senses can be used to trigger the brain's imagination and supplement the cognitive understanding of reality. Touch is the most sensitive way. Although plants have no vision, smell, or taste, their sense of touch is relatively more sensitive. It can also put you into a dream from which it is difficult to wake up. The white palm gradually turned black, as if some power was injected into the body of the blood corpse tree king, causing its torso to shrink tautly. But after a moment, the vines that had been attacking Sharon and the others fiercely suddenly stopped attacking and then slowly retracted. Sharon and others were all injured, and this battle was also extremely exhausting for them. Fortunately, they finally managed to temporarily resolve the current crisis. What do we do next? Styx looked at Sharon and asked. The Phantom Leader cannot be killed. The most important thing is how long you can keep him in a deep sleep. Chapter 1970, One World Tree. Nyx frowned, and her face turned paler. For such a powerful spirit to enter a perfect dream was extremely exhausting for her. It will wake up in 2 hours at most. Sharon said, What are we waiting for? Let's get out of here. He summoned the Styx fairy again and followed its instructions to find a way out of the area. However, out of kindness, he went to pick up the other members of Abel's team first. For safety reasons, the other secondary personalities were eliminated. Otherwise, these lunatics might really treat Cartiers and others as toys. By the way, the reason why Newton's wife became like that was related to the goddess of the night. The entire world turned into a sea of trees. The small fairy quickly passed through the trees and left the area. Next, we have to look for Chaos. Only when we find him can we be truly safe and head to the place where Mammon is sealed. Only with the help of the Spear of Longinus can they truly fight against the Lord of the Phantom. The fairy left this world and entered a completely new area. The sound of the waves echoed in their ears. At some point, they followed the dark river and arrived in front of the ocean. At the end of the road, it was pitch black, almost swallowing up all the light in the world. On the Asgard side, the god King Odin led Loki, Hela, and the gods in the temple to a special world. This is a battlefield from ancient times, with broken swords and battle flags everywhere. The battlefield is covered with half-dead giant corpses, some of which look like dragons, some like angels, and many of which look like half-human, half-beast creatures. Not long after they arrived here, they encountered their opponent. No, perhaps it should be said that it was not that they encountered opponents, but that their opponents were chasing them. The Crow of Sin and its army of crows stood on this battlefield. An army of tens of thousands of crows, all dressed in pitch-black armor and holding spears, their pupils exuding deadly intent. The Crow of Sin, twice as tall as an ordinary crow soldier, stood at the front, holding a magic spear in his hand, staring at Odin in the crowd. There are only 100 soldiers in the Asgard temple, but the next opponent they will face is tens of thousands of crow soldiers. This was an unimaginably fierce battle, but there was no trace of fear on the faces of the temple soldiers. The moment one decides to go to the Devil's Eye, most people are destined to die here. Warriors of Asgard, draw your swords and go to fight. The gates of Valhalla will open to heroes and warriors. Odin rode on the back of a huge 8-winged Pegasus, lightning flashing on his palms, making him light up the entire world like a real Thor. Roar! The temple soldiers let out an angry war cry and charged directly forward. In the camp of crow soldiers, the Crow of Doom said nothing, but just pointed the demon-devouring spear in his hand forward. Tens of thousands of crow soldiers were silent, swift as the wind, slow as the forest, aggressive as fire, and they attacked the human army, which was only a few dozen feet away from them, like an overwhelming force. Odin pulled the reins in his hand and was about to duel with the Raven of Evil. But at this moment, the gothic Lolita Belit Thomas next to him grabbed the horse's head. "Odin, your abilities are outclassed by his. Let us take on this battle. Go and clean up those crow soldiers." The fighting style of the Crow of Evil tends to be strengthening, so he has a magic-devouring gun in his hand that can suppress supernatural energy. In the previous battle, Eomer had already suffered a loss, and he would only be at a disadvantage if he fought again. Hela also stepped forward and pulled out a long, bloody whip covered with barbs from her waist. "Let us deal with that guy. My soul coffin is outside, so I won't die here." She raised the corners of her mouth, looking extremely proud. Any Jedi is no problem for her, because she can choose to die and resurrect in the position of the heart. Eomer looked at his two deputies and suddenly laughed out loud with his head raised. "You two guys are really so ridiculous." His voice and eyes became colder. Everyone looked up at him, wondering why Alu would say such words to rebuke the people who were devoted to him. Eomer snorted coldly. "I am the God King Eomer, the king of Northern Europe. In the future, I will unify all of Europe, and even the world. Why would I need you to face the opponent's coach for me?" "Oh, you." Loki was angry and wanted to refute, but Aoki simply told her to shut up. "Shut up, Loki. You just need to follow my orders." He stared at the Crow of Evil in the distance and said coldly, "And with the strength of the two of you guys, are you going to die by going to him?" Aou was well aware of how terrifying the power of the Phantom Leader was. Even he was not sure he could escape unscathed, let alone these two black chariot-level deputies. "Oh, they are thinking about themselves, but he doesn't need them," Hela said anxiously. "But what's the point of doing this? Can your ability really fight against it?" "Haha, of course you can. If not, why do you think I can be an Eomer, but you can't?" Eomer was always keeping an eye on the movements of the Crow of Sin. "And don't think that after returning from Chernobyl, I am still the same person as before." After the Ihan tribe dispersed their spirits, the ones who benefited the most were Zhang, Yi, and Yang Xinxin. The first echelon consisted of the aliens such as Okada, who existed in the Chernobyl wasteland at that time. The baptism they endured was less than 1,000th of that of Zhang, Yi, and Yang Xinxin, the two people in the core spiritual ocean, but they also benefited from it, resulting in a huge improvement in their own potential. "It's time to fight hard." Ouya sighed softly. Boom! The Crow of Evil shook the demon-devouring spear in his hand. It was a simple movement, but because of its excessive speed and power, it directly broke through the sound barrier and caused a strong wind. He flapped his wings and flew towards the direction where Eomer and the other two were. As fast as the wind and lightning, as leaping as a tiger and running as a dragon. Eomer covered his eyes with his left hand, his eyes sinister and with a hint of determination. "Sacrifice." After he finished speaking, he actually inserted his fingers into his own eye sockets and then took out his eyeballs. He squeezed the eyeball in his palm with force, and what spurted out was not only blood plasma and transparent liquid, but also a huge black mist, which instantly spread out with his palm as the center. It was like a huge black tree blooming in the void. Dear viewers, thanks for staying with me. We'll try to get you more updates. Please like and subscribe and share the video with your friends. Love you all.